In my first video about RAF Morpeth, I talked about the accommodation sites, which have mostly returned to farm or woodland. I also took a jeep drive around the outside of the airfield, to see what was visible from the public roads. If you haven't seen the first part of this video, there will be a link at the end. During the afternoon of Friday the 21st of August 2020, our friends had all turned up to the campsite, so we set off on a group tour of the airfield. One of our group knew the airfield owner, and had arranged to borrow the gate key. On this trip, we took our vehicles onto the airfield and did some exploring both with the vehicles and on foot. Unlike my tour earlier in the day, this time we turned right out of the campsite, as that was the quickest way to get to the main gate. We pulled the convoy in through the gate, and stopped on the entrance road, where the various offices were located. There were two gunnery flight offices here, one of which was located just to the left of the front GMC truck, with another a little further forward and around the corner to the left. The towed target flight offices were just to the right of the rear GMC truck. After locking the gate behind us, we set off to our first stop, at the northernmost T1 hangar base. We turned left at the end of the entrance road, onto the taxiway that links the two hangars. We followed the taxiway around to the right, and parked up on the hangar base. As mentioned in the previous video, back in the late 1980s, the T1 hangar still stood at this location. At the time, I worked for a light aviation maintenance company, based at Newcastle Airport. The company wanted to buy the former RAF Morpeth as an operating base, but that wasn't an option that was available. Instead, the company bought the hangar, to dismantle and rebuild at Newcastle. I think it was during 1989, that we finally took down the hangar. The other two T1 hangars were already gone by that time. Trees surround the hangar base now, but back in 1989, there were just grass fields. The Blackburn both are operated from the airfield, during World War II, so I've added one to the hangar base, behind our group photo. We left the vehicles parked there for the time being, and went off exploring on foot. We followed the taxiway, back to the southwest, heading towards the other hangar base. This view is part-way around, where the taxiway splits left to the main perimeter track, and right to the other hangar. None of these trees existed back in 1989. Just on the left around the corner, was another double, extra over, Miskin's Blister Hangar. Looking back to the northeast, the Blister Hangar would have been just off the right side of this image. The tarmac surface is breaking up, with lots of loose gravel. We're standing near the southern end of this hangar now, looking back towards the first hangar. Back in 1989, I flew a radio-controlled, sports-scale Evans Volksplane from this hangar base. There were no obstructions anywhere around at the time. From the hangar base, we continued southwest to the corner of the taxiway. At this corner, the taxiway turns left, heading almost south, back to the main perimeter track. From this corner, we were also fairly close to the towed target store, that I'd seen from the road on my morning jeep drive. The building looked in fairly good condition, other than the windows being missing, along with the ridge tiles. Close by, there was an overgrown blast shelter. Other than being overgrown, it also looked in fairly good condition. We couldn't move on without taking a closer look at the building. The path around the building was still clear and the area around it wasn't too overgrown. Here's a few views of the inside of the towed target store. The floor was covered in leaves, blown in through the missing windows, and there were several broken pallets scattered around. One part of the building is divided into a separate room. The only references I can find for towed target stores are 24 feet span Nissan huts. These were open plan, with a small office in one corner. While the building construction is different, the floor plan matches the description. I don't know whether the building was just used for storage, or whether it was also used for sewn repairs on drogues with bullet holes. Here's two more external images of the building from the other end. Even the rendering on this 80-year-old building was in good condition. Our next walk took us down the taxiway, towards the perimeter track. We then walked northeast, along the perimeter to the taxiway, leading to the other end of the hangar base where our vehicles were parked. This is the view, part way along the hangar taxiway, looking towards the airfield. At the corner, the taxiway turns left, so in this view, we are now looking northeast along the perimeter track. A few yards along here and on the left, was the location of one of the blister hangars. Just on the right was a Pan Dispersal. We are now halfway between the hangars, at a T-junction in the perimeter. We are looking more or less north along the taxiway that branches left and right, to both T1 hangars. At this same T-junction, we are looking back along the perimeter track that we just walked along. We are now at the taxiway leading to the hangar base where our vehicles were parked. There was no access through here, due to a security fence around a nearby telecommunications tower. This perimeter track picture is looking back along the whole length that we walked. It was taken near to the end of the track, close to where it joins the main runway. From the perimeter track, we made our way to the northeast end of the main runway. We are now looking along the main, northeast, southwest runway. Only around 600 feet of this runway remain, and its tarmac surface is now mostly loose gravel. The end of the runway is now covered with trees, so we made a curved detour, along a path through the woods, to continue around the airfield perimeter. As we emerged from the wood, we came across the remains of some buildings. There were numerous bricks and large chunks of concrete scattered around. Looking on the airfield plan, there were no buildings in this immediate area. I can't see any buildings being located near the runway threshold, so I presume the rubble was moved from elsewhere, and dumped here. Once past the rubble, we got a better view of the Miskin's Blister Hangar. At the edge of the rubble pile, was this large concrete cylinder. At first, I did wonder if it was an airfield Pickett Hamilton fort. Here's a surviving Pickett Hamilton fort, at the northeast, land, sea, and air museum. Note the thick lip around the top and the slit gun port windows. There is also a hatch in the top. The RAF Morpeth object shares similarities to the Pickett Hamilton fort. There is a lip around the top, plus a hatch in the top face. However, there are no gun slits, so I don't think it is a fort, and it's just a coincidence that it is a similar size. We continued our walk away from the runway, following a curved taxiway away from the main perimeter track. This curved taxiway would take us to the Blister Hangar. The curved track is still there under the grass, but is slowly being hidden. There were three sizes of Miskin's hangar. This type is known as a double, extra over blister hangar. From doing some research, the smallest version was the standard blister, built to drawing number 12-4-97-41. This had a wooden frame with 5 feet centers to the frames, and steel cladding. It had a span of 45 feet, and a length of 25 feet. The over blister had a welded steel frame, with 7 feet 6-inch spacings. It spanned 65 feet with a 45 feet length. Its drawing number was 12-5-12-41. The extra over blister was 69 feet span, from drawing number 12-4-32-41. I'm guessing these hangar dimensions were the door span, as measuring the surviving blister on Google Earth, the overall span of the building is about 94 feet. As already mentioned, this hangar is a double, extra over blister hangar. The double meant that it was 2 hangars built back to back, giving a length of 90 feet, rather than the normal 45 feet. Just behind the blister hangar, in the edge of the woodland, there is an air raid shelter. Unlike the other open-type shelters I saw touring the airfield, this one was concrete. This was a Stanton, precast concrete shelter, and it appears intact and complete with the entrance blast wall. There were 2 of these shelters in my garden in days gone by, as the site was the location of the village school. After the shelter visit, I came back past the blister hangar and headed south to some of the surviving hut bases. 75 feet from the edge of the hangar, there is this circular concrete structure. It is larger than the previous circular structure I found, but is not marked on the Air Ministry map. A bit further south, there is the concrete base of what is described as the Motor Transport Petrol Installation. This had storage for 5,000 gallons of vehicle fuel. Here's a closer view of the petrol installation site. The petrol was stored in an underground tank, lifted by an electrical pump which could dispense 15 gallons per minute. Just a little to the southwest, is a frying pan dispersal. We are looking over it here, back to the Blister Hangar. The site of this pan is where the airfield map shows a Blister Hangar, marked as wrecked on the 1943 plan. Turning and looking the other way, the two light green vehicle tracks in the grass mark the position of the curved taxiway as it bends back to the main perimeter track. After a look around some of the other concrete building bases, we walked back to get the vehicles. We were going to bring them to the runway for a group photo. We set off from the hangar base, passing the airfield entrance, and continuing to turn left onto the central taxiway, between the two T1 hangars. This shot is looking back as we leave the hangar area. Driving down the central track, we passed the site of the Blister Hangar and the Pan Dispersal. While the Blister is long gone, the base of that hangar and the Pan Dispersal must be still there, as the tree growth is limited in those locations. We continued northeast along the perimeter track, before turning onto the runway as seen here. We parked up while everyone took photos from a number of different angles. Due to the lockdowns earlier in the year, all our 2020 events had been cancelled, so this was the first time we'd been able to meet up. We chatted for a while, but with the time now around 5 p.m., we headed back to the campsite to get the barbecue started. If you've not seen part 1 of this video, check out the link at the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe.